Today's lesson is, once again, we're going to be factoring, but today we're going to be factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. The difference between this factoring and what we factored yesterday is today we have an a that is something other than 1. Alright, so we do have to take that into consideration. There is more work involved when you factor with a variable, with a number for a that's something other than 1. So what we're going to do first is, just like yesterday, we want to know the factors of 3. The factors of 3 are 3 times 1. And again, we have a negative here, so we know that one of these is going to be a negative, but we don't know which one. Today, what we have to do is also find the factors of 2. So we have the factors of 2, which are 2 times 1. Now, from here, what we have to do is say, okay, well, the factors of the last number times the factors of the first number, then those answers added together have to equal the middle. And so what I'm going to do is say, well, the factors of the first number, 2 times a factor of the last number times 1, plus a factor of the first number, my 1, and my factor of my last number times 3. Alright, I'm looking at this and it's saying 2 plus 3. But again, one of these has to be a negative. So if all this is just a positive, we get a 5. 2 times 1 plus 1 times 3, and it gives me a positive 5. So again, because of the negative here and the negative here, we know that we have to have a negative in as far as our 3 or our 1. And so we'll try it again. And again, factoring is just processing out which factors and in which order they are going to be multiplied together to equal our middle number, our b, which is, in this one, is going to be a 1 because any x means 1 times x. So I'm going to start with 2 again, because it's always going to be a 2 and a 1 every time. It's going to be a 2 and a 1. We can go down and we can make this as much as we want, a 2 and a 1, a 2 and a 1, because these two are not going to change. What changes is over on this side, the 3 times 1, one of them has to be a negative. So we have to decide which one is going to be a negative. So that's what we have to do here. We're going to multiply the 3 and the 1 by our 2 and 1 and see which one will help us get to the answer that we need, which is a negative 1. So if I choose, this time I'm going to say, what if I do 2 times a positive 3, 2 times a positive 3, and then I'm going to make my negative 1. If I do that, because again I have to have 2 times 3 and then 1 times 1. If I do that, then I have this is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 times a negative 1 gives me a negative 1, which 6 plus a negative 1 gives me a positive 5. So that's not my negative 1. So I'm going to try again. What if I say, this time I want to try my negative with my 3. So 2 times a negative 3, and then 1 times a positive 1. So this time I have 2 times a negative 3 is a negative 6, plus 1 times 1, which is plus 1, equals a negative 5. So again, it's not my negative 1. So I'm going to have to try with my 1s being with my 2. So I can say 2 times 1 plus 1 times a negative 3. So 2 times 1 gives me a positive 2, and then plus 1 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 3. 2 plus a negative 3 gives me a negative 1. So this right here is what I want, and so I know that this is the way that I have to multiply. But when you put them in the parentheses, remember in factor form you have parentheses. So I will put my parentheses, And I have found that I have 2 times 1, so I can say 2x times 1x. And this is what will confuse some people. And so I try to make sure that everybody understands whatever you multiplied this 2 by has to go in the opposite parentheses. So we multiplied it by 1, and it was a positive 1. And so the 1, this 1x, was multiplied by a negative 3. So again, you put it in the opposite parentheses. The reason why is because when you go to FOIL it, remember first, outer, inner, and last, you will end up with the example that you originally began with. So I will show that to you now. 2x times 1x equals 2x squared. 2x times 1, which is what we did up here, is 2x. And then a negative 3 times 1, which is what we did right here, a negative 3x. And then a negative 3 times 1 is my minus 3. So we have 2x squared, positive 2x minus 3x gives me a minus 1x minus 3. And you can see that they do match up. The reason why that you put them in opposite parentheses is because when you are FOILing, you have to remember that the first goes to the first number of the first parentheses has to be multiplied by the first and the last number in the second parentheses. The last number is where we got this 2 times 1 from. And that is how you factor when you have an a with your ax squared plus bx plus c when a is greater than 1. What we just factored had minus signs with our b and our c in the ax squared plus bx plus c. And so I wanted to go ahead and show you one when everything is addition. Again, we want to find the factors of our last number, which we have are 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and we also have 4 times 4. And then our factors of our first number, which is 1 times 9, and 3 times 3. All right, so again, we have to remember that we are multiplying these factors by one of these factors to equal 24 when they're added together. And so I'm going to start down here, and I want to start with, let's see, if I do 9s, I'll do 1 times 16, 1 times 16 plus 9 times 1. Alright, so 16 plus 9 gives us 24, 25. So it's not 24. So I know that if I do 9 times 16, that's going to give me a very large number. So I don't think that I can use my 1 times 16. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it out. The next one I want to try is, what if I do 1 times 2, or no, let me do times 8, because I know 9 times 8 is going to give me a large number. So 1 times 8, and then if I do 9 times 2, that gives me 1 times 8 is 8, and 9 times 2 is 18, so that gives me 26. So again, my 2 times 8 will not work for 1 times 9. Alright, so I'm going to mark it out. Now, why don't we try again? I know 4 times 4 is 32. Alright, so again, it's bigger than my 24. So all of this will not work because I have to multiply 9 times 4. So why don't I try doing a 3 times 4? If I want to do a 3 times 4 plus 3 times 4. That gives me 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 times 4 is 12, gives me my 24. So because this number matches my b in my ax squared plus bx plus c, I know that these are my factors that I want to use. So again, I'm going to bring out parentheses, because every factor has parentheses. The 3's are my first numbers, so I can do a 3 and a 3. I have x squared, so that lets me know x times x. And they're both additions, so I can say plus and a plus. And then the very last step is to put my 4 and 4. Again, if you want to check your work, you can FOIL. 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times 4 is plus 12x. 4 times 3x is plus 12x. And then 4 times 4 is my 16. So when I combine my x's together, I get 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. And again, this, my checked solution, does equal my original equation. So my factors of 9x squared plus 24x plus 16 is 3x plus 4 times 3x plus 4. The next type of factoring we're going to use is if we need to factor out the monomial as our first step. Now remember, a monomial is a number or a variable or a combination of the two, but it's just one term. So I want to look at 6t squared minus 24 and see if they both terms have something in common. When I'm looking at them, I can see that 24 is divisible by 6, and so I can divide out a 6. When I divide out my 6, I have to put it on the outside of a parentheses, and so 6t squared divided by 6 gives me t squared, and then a negative 24 divided by 6 gives me a negative 4. From here, we can remember our special patterns from yesterday where we had a squared minus b squared, which can be rewritten as a minus b times a plus b. That was a special pattern from yesterday. And so I want to look and see, since I have a t squared, can I make 4 into a number squared? I can, and so I'm going to rewrite it as 6 times t squared minus 2 squared. And so now I can see my a squared, which is t squared, and my b squared, which is, t squared and then 2 squared. So I can rewrite this into this form. So I will say 6 times t minus 2 times t plus 2. And I have now factored 6t squared minus 24 by factoring a monomial first and then using a special pattern. The next one that we want to factor is 9x squared minus 25. Again, this is going to bring in the special pattern from yesterday, which was the a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. Again, these two, as long as you have a plus and a minus, they can be in, the parentheses themselves can be in either order. You can have the minus first, or you can have the positive first. So I want to rewrite this equation as much as I can to make it look like my special pattern. I can see that 9 is divisible by 3, and it gives you 3, so I can go ahead and rewrite it as 3 squared times x squared minus 5 times 5 equals 25, so I can say 5 squared. Now everything is a squared, and so I can rewrite this right here, this 3 squared x squared, as 3x squared minus 5 squared. So now my 3x, the whole 3x, is my a. Now that you can see that as one term, because 3x is my a, I can rewrite it in my a plus b times a minus b form. So I can say 3x plus 5 times 3x minus 5. And I have now used my special pattern to be able to factor 9x squared minus 25. The last part of this lesson is going to have us solve quadratic equations. And we can see in our example here we have 4s squared plus 11s plus 8 equals 3s plus 4. But in order to solve a quadratic equation, we need to have it in standard form. So I need to rewrite the equation with everything on one side of the equal sign. In order to do that, this 3s needs to come to the other side of the equal sign. And to make it to where both sides are doing the same thing, we have to subtract 3s and subtract 3s. And so I'll do that. So we have 4s squared plus 8s plus 8 equals, now all I have is 4. But again, I need my 4 to come over. And so again, I want to zero this out. So I'm going to subtract 4 and subtract 4. So I have 4s squared plus 8s, and then 8 minus 4 gives me plus 4. Now I can say equals 0 because we have zeroed out the other side. From here, you want to take into consideration your factoring. We have the factors of 4, which is 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. And then again, the factors of 4, 1 times 4 and 2 times 2, when multiplied together and then added together, equal my 8. So if I want to start, I'll try 1 times 4 plus 4 times 1 equals 8. Because we have 4, 1 times 4 is 4, and then 4 times 1 is 4, so that does equal 8. Alright, so with our first one, we were able to go ahead and solve this, and so I can put it in parentheses as, and I have it different over here. So, I can say this is x, and my parentheses, I have x, and then this one over here would be 4x. Then I have plus 4, and then over on this one, it would be plus 1. Plus 1. From here, you would solve, and we would set each parentheses up equal to 0. So x plus 1 equals 0. So my x would equal a negative 1. And then 4x plus 4 equals 0. 4x equals, we bring our 4 over to the other side, which means we change the sign, the operation, so now it's a negative 4. And then we have to divide by 4, so we can say x equals a negative 1, because a negative 4 divided by 4 equals a negative 1. And there we have solved the quadratic equation.